everybody. You're up 2-0. What's the story? Are you not happy, or you're only half happy, or?
Still to be happy about.
You're up 2-0.
Job's not finished. Job finished? I don't think so.
Okay.
What is good, everybody? The Ball Don't Lie boys are back. I'm in Innovation Park right now, so I got my mask. Matt is chilling in his apartment. Same crew from last semester. It was a little nuts because we got cut short, but I don't know if you remember, Matt, but we actually were able to squeeze in a show right before spring break. I remember we were like, should we do a show? And we did it, and I guess thank God, because it would have been an even longer hiatus.
Yeah, ended up being the last one for a long time.
Yeah, so anyways, typically coming back from break, I was like, okay, we're going to have nothing to talk about. But the NBA playoffs are currently happening right now. We got a lot going on. So, that's the times that we're at right now. 24/7 hoops, you know what it is. So we are currently, as of this recording, in the conference semifinals. First off, let's talk about the Raptors-Celtics series, right? So pretty crazy series so far. It was looking like Boston was going to run away with this one, but then the Raptors clawed their way back, heart of a champion. OG Anunoby hits that crazy three at the buzzer. Then they win Game 4. Celtics wipe the floor, though, with the Raptors in Game 5. Matt, what do you expect? I believe Game 6 is tonight, right?
It is tonight, 6:30 tonight. I do think the Celtics are the better team in this series. The two Raptors wins, it's just been the Celtics not playing up to their potential and, not shooting the ball as well as they have. And as far as the Raptors calling back, if they want to win tonight, I feel like that's the only chance because Game 7, anything can happen. So the key to the Raptors winning tonight would probably be staying in the game early. I feel like every game this series, they've fallen behind pretty quickly. And if they can stay in the game early and keep the game competitive throughout, I think they'll be in a much better shape.
That's a great point, Matt. Yeah, it seems like when the Raptors win, they have to come back, be from behind, claw their way. They just squeeze it out. But when the Celtics win, they blow them out. So like you said, the Raptors got to play pretty much damn near perfect to win this one, which they could do. Again, they're a really well-coached team with Nick Nurse. They got a lot of weapons. Maybe not the true number one they had last year with Kawhi Leonard, but they have a lot of guys that can kill you. So if they can have multiple players step up, I think that they potentially have a chance here.
I agree.
All right. So also, too, let's go around the association like we always do here. Montrezl Harrell winning Sixth Man of the Year over his teammate Lou Will, the sixth god himself, and Dennis Schroeder for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And it's pretty funny. I had to go back and see the last time a big man won it. And Lamar Odom was maybe the last one, but even then he's kind of like a wing point forward kind of thing.
Yeah.
Montrezl is really a true center. Averaged 18.6 points per game, 7.1 rebounds, a little over a block, a 26.26 player efficiency rating. That's very, very good. That's one of the best in the league. 58% shooting from the field, and he got 58 of the first place votes. Dennis Schroeder 38, so it wasn't a blowaway. It was a pretty close one. Matt, I want to hear your opinion. Would you have picked Montrezl to win sixth man this year?
I still probably would have taken Harrell over Schroeder and Williams in this year. You could have made an argument for anyone in this race. They all had fairly similar stats. I think they all averaged around 18 points per game. And at the end of the day, I think they're just trying to give the award to someone who isn't Lou Williams. And I think Harrell certainly deserved it. He brought a spark off the bench for them all year, and you could have argued he probably should have been starting all year over Zubac, but the Clippers tend to do that hockey line situation where they have two legitimate lines come in. They have a bunch of guys come off the bench and play really well, and could start pretty much anywhere else. They just play for Clippers.
Yeah, I'm actually going to disagree. I mean, Montrezl had a great year, but I think Dennis Schroeder should have won it. Again, I know it's a regular season award, but looking at what Dennis Schroeder did in the playoffs with the Thunder, keeping him in that series. I mean, this dude dropping 30 points like it was nothing off the bench. And I guess in theory, I thought Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell kind of cancel each other out a bit in votes-wise because you're like, all right, who is the better one, at least for this year. And then I think another guy, too, who maybe wasn't going to win it, but I think definitely deserved, consideration was Jordan Clarkson for the Jazz. When he got there in Utah, he was arguably their second-best player after Donovan Mitchell, at least on the offensive end of the floor. He was getting his shots up. So I think you got to give him love too. I personally would have went Dennis Schroeder, but Montrezl Harrell had a great year off the bench, so I guess you can't really complain there.
Yeah.
So also too, everyone was debating, is Zion Williamson gonna overtake John Morant for Rookie of the Year? No. In fact, John Morant got 99 of the 100 votes, and he actually called out the person. He's like, whoever didn't vote for me, like that's just extra motivation. So I just want to ask you a bigger, broader question here. Who do you think is gonna have the better career, John Morant or Zion Williamson?
Man, it's so tough for me. I think, injuries aside, I think it's Zion. When his coach actually lets him play more than 50 minutes per game, we saw how utterly dominant he was in probably like the 30 games he played this year. Like I said, the big thing for him, though, will be if he can stay on the court. He's already had a lot of injury issues, but if he can stay on the court, I think, he's going to have an incredible career.
Yeah, I mean Zion, I think, is a better basketball player, but I don't know. It's the injuries do scare me, and this is coming from someone who is a Duke fan here. I mean, I look at what John Morant's doing, like as a point guard coming into the league and dominating the game like he does right now. I actually think John Morant may have the better career when it's all said and done. Look at the Grizzlies and how he contributed to winning from the gate. The thing I love about Ja is he's not scared. He showed that he's not scared of anybody. Even as a rookie, he's coming in out for blood. And I love that competitiveness. I think as much as I love Zion, and again, maybe a more talented player, I think John Morant actually may end up having the better career. A little longer career at least, too.
Yeah, that's true. And, we saw the way John Morant carried that team in the bubble, too, especially after Jaren Jackson Jr. went down. In that playing game against Portland, he pretty much willed the Grizzlies into being competitive in that game and staying in that game. So if he can show that the rest of his career, I think he could potentially have a better career.
Yeah, I mean, there's just some guys that they just have it and they get it, and I feel like John Morant's one of those dudes. So
Definitely.
a lot of coaching carousel a little bit, if you want to call it here. Steve Nash getting the hire in Brooklyn. That one came out of left field. Literally no one saw that one coming. Obviously, no coaching experience, but he's a really, really well-respected guy in the NBA, not only for what he did as a basketball player, but who he is as a person as well. I think we definitely can both agree that both Kevin Durant and Kyrie had some say in this. They weren't left in the dark here. But I also want to ask you, how do you think Nash will fare with Brooklyn?
Well, I think of all the teams that are looking for a coach right now, Brooklyn is obviously the most attractive place to be. Of all the places that he could have gone, this is probably the place where he'll have the best chance to win. The East is also a far easier route to the finals than anywhere in the West is, and the healthy combo of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving could prove to be lethal if they can play well together. This signing gives me big-time Steve Kerr, the Warriors vibes, pulling a guy that nobody thought was going to get a job pretty much out of nowhere and putting him on a roster that has a lot of talent. I think it's a good signing for Nets.
That's a really interesting point right there. One Steve to another, I guess. I didn't really think of that. Yeah, Steve Kerr, he kind of got thrown in the fire too and had this innovative offense that changed basketball essentially. So let's see if Steve Nash has any of that as well. And also I know, do you think he'll be able to kind of redeem his career, if you will, and win a championship with Brooklyn?
I think he certainly has a great chance to do it just because he has that championship pedigree with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And I feel like Nash is going to be like a hands-off kind of coach where he's just going to, kind of let Durant and Irving take over if they need to. So I think he's definitely in a great position to get that first ring of his.
Yeah, I mean, Brooklyn, we'll really see what they're all about next year because this year we kind of all knew it was going to be a wash with no Kevin Durant, and then Kyrie went down. Then basically the whole team went down and didn't travel to Orlando except for Karis LeVert. But nevertheless, though, another firing, I should say, that I was a little shocked about was Nate McMillan being canned after being swept by the Miami Heat 4-0. Although it's looking like Miami's just steamrolling through everybody at this point. Did you agree with this decision? What was your initial reaction?
I got to tell you, I was just as surprised as you were. It seemed like a pretty rash decision to me. They were missing their best player in Domantas Sabonis for pretty much the entirety of the bubble. He got hurt before they even played a game. Not sure if they would have beaten Miami even with Sabonis, but this seems wholly like McMillan's fault, especially with, Oladipo having been injured for pretty much the whole year, and he didn't seem like himself even when he came back. It doesn't seem fair at all to fire him with a squad that was pretty much hurt all time.
Yeah, and they were the 4th seed in the East, and Nate McMillan has had to deal with injuries his whole time he's been there. Victor Oladipo had the injury. Sabonis had the injury. Jeremy Lamb didn't play. I mean, I feel like he's had to deal with a lot, and yet this team still wins. And Malcolm Brogdon leaves this year. Or no, they got Malcolm Brogdon, but he missed a lot of games this year too. Like, all they've had to do is deal with injuries here. And then Darren Collison retires. Like, they have all these things happening, and yet they're still able to win a ton of basketball games. And obviously, look, getting swept by the Miami Heat's a bad look. You know, they're not even winning a game against them is pretty sad. But at the same time, though, I mean, maybe look bigger picture here. Do you think they have somebody in mind that is going to replace McMillan? Kind of the same way like a Mark Jackson was fired and then Steve Kerr kind of came into place, even though Mark Jackson, you know, had a great season with the Warriors that year.
Well, the rumblings are that Mike D'Antoni of the Rockets is the guy that the Pacers are targeting if the Rockets don't re-sign him because his contract is up. I'm not sure how this signing is going to make sense, though, with their current roster construction because they don't have that guy like a James Harden or a Steve Nash that can lead an offense and take over the game if they need to. And, you know, a guy like Miles Turner doesn't really fit into D'Antoni's scheme. Oladipo doesn't really fit in D'Antoni's scheme either. So there's probably going to be a lot of roster shuffle if they do decide to go that route. But maybe they go after an assistant that nobody else is really thinking about right now from another team, maybe like a Jason Kidd or something.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Maybe Ty Lue, since he didn't get the Brooklyn job, maybe he looks at like a team like Indiana. I'm not sure. But, yeah, those are good points right there. I think, the Indiana, that definitely shocked me, that move. Getting Mike D'Antoni. I think Mike D'Antoni works, but you have to let him build his team. I think that's always the key. Like, and the Pacers don't have that right now. So it would take a couple of years for him to really build that. So if you take a guy like Mike D'Antoni, who is a little older, he's an older head coach, you know, I kind of wonder, like, how much time are they going to give this guy? You know, I think that'd be a very interesting proposition to make. Another coaching decision, this one happened yesterday, was Billy Donovan mutually agreeing to part ways with the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, for a guy who was arguably a coach of the year candidate, I mean, what was this all about?
Yeah, he was a coach of the year finalist. I mean, I don't really understand the decision. Maybe, you know, the report came out that it was a mutual decision for both of them to part ways. So what I'm thinking is the Thunder are probably going to blow it up this offseason. They don't want to be mediocre and be one of those playoff teams that gets out in the first round every year. And Billy Donovan, obviously, as a coach, you want to remain competitive. And if he sees that the Thunder, their long-term plans are not to be competitive for a few years, he probably doesn't want to be in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what happened. Maybe after the season ended for them, he was like, what's the deal here? And I guess he agreed to part ways to get a better coaching job somewhere else for a contender. Maybe he's a guy who looks at Indiana. Maybe Houston if D'Antoni gets released. Maybe Billy Donovan is the guy. Because I've been pretty critical of Billy Donovan as an NBA head coach, but he really showed up this year and really brought the best out of them. I don't know if it was like maybe he's not the greatest with dealing with like superstars, if you will. Some coaches are better at that than others. But he got the best out of his team this year. And a team that was down 3-1 almost won Game 7 against a very good Houston Rockets team. And I think it was like a 1% chance that they had of like making the playoffs this year, and they did.
They ended up going to Game 7 against a highly touted Rockets team. That's pretty
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think he's definitely going to get a head coaching job soon. I guess the question is when. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess we don't really have a whole lot of other news here, but that's going to end our Around the Association. Next, we always do our Players of the Week. Matt, give your player number 1 on your list.
I miss him so much. Jimmy Butler, you know, obviously this series against Milwaukee, he has been the heart and soul for the Miami Heat. He had a 40-point game in Game 1 where he absolutely dominated anybody that was guarding him because Giannis refused to. He led Miami in this series of Milwaukee. He averaged almost 25 points per game in this series. He again showed up last night. I mean, what else can you say about the guy?
Yeah, Jimmy Buckets, I mean, he's been the best player on the court easily, outplaying Giannis 100%. Actually, I have a little update here about the Pacers starting their head coaching search. They're looking at former Kings and Grizzlies head coach David Yeager and then Spurs assistant Becky Hammond.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, I know she got a couple interviews last year, but I guess, I don't know. We'll see. So that was a Woj update there. So I'll trust the sources, if you will. But sorry to cut you off there, but I was like, oh, all right.
I was expecting Hammond to just be the woman to take over in San Antonio after Popovich retired. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta field your offers, right? Make yourself marketable, if you will. But also, I also have a Miami Heat player, my player of the week list. That's Goran Dragic. This dude
Mhm.
has been getting the buckets. I mean, I think they put him in the starting lineup, and he's every time I watch him play, he's just drilling three after three. They're leaving him open. The Bucks, their defensive scheme is not good against the Miami Heat's offense. They're sticking to what
No.
they know, and it's killing them. And I guess I can't blame them for that philosophy, but this is just a bad matchup, and Goran Dragic has really just eaten against this Buck defense.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, he's really balled out this series. He was coming off the bench and they decided to put him in that starting lineup. Like you said, it's made a huge difference for them.
Most definitely. Now, who's number 2 on your list?
All right, this is pretty obviously LeBron James. He's doing it all for the Lakers right now. He's got Zero Dark 23 mode activated. He had 4 blocks in the third quarter alone last night. 29 points in the first half is the hottest I've seen him all year, probably since his Cavs days when he carried that 2018 team to the finals. He's been absolutely balling out. He had 30-some points in game 2, I believe, 36, I believe, in game 2, or maybe that was Anthony Davis. But, yeah, he's been absolutely balling out this series. Big step up from the Blazers series, I think, for him.
Yeah, I mean, LeBron's starting to get in his bag a little bit. And like you said, when he gets in like that Zero Dark 23 mode, like he is just damn near impossible to guard on either. Yeah, and defensively, he was getting it done. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times he's blocked Russell Westbrook in this series. Like, it's been pathetic on his end. But stupid crazy. But anyway, number 2 on my list, I'm going to go with the Laker here. I didn't want to go LeBron. I thought that would be a little too obvious. But I'm going to go Rajon Rondo based on how he played yesterday. I mean, I don't know if you watched that game, but 21 points from Rondo. The dude was just drilling 3 after 3. He has been a big addition for the Lakers, and playoff Rondo's a real thing. He's stepping up right now.
Yeah. Rondo's been great. I mean, even you're obviously going to get the assist from him, the great passing, but him hitting threes was shocking. I was shocked to see that.
Yeah, I've always said when the Lakers start hitting threes, it's over. That's always been like the Achilles heel of the team, if you will. And if they start hitting threes and the way they play defense, the way LeBron, Anthony Davis control the game in the pick and roll and in the paint, there's nothing you can do at that point.
Yeah.
So also, Matt, last but not least, who else made your player of the week list?
I have Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets. He had 30 points in Game 7 against Utah last week, and they only scored 80 points in that game, so he almost had half their points. Pretty much carried them to that win. He had 26 and 18 in their Game 2 win over the Clippers, 32, 12, and 8 on Monday night in their narrow loss. He has been the star that they've needed him to be in this series. He's pretty much kept them afloat while guys like Jamal Murray are struggling a little bit. If he keeps this up, I think this series could be a lot closer than people anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, Nikola Jokic has to be a superstar, a dominant player against a pretty small Clippers team. People don't really want to understand that this is a very perimeter guard-oriented team. So Jokic has to dominate, and he's been dominating. Do I think that's going to be enough? I'm not 100% sure. I just kind of look at the rest of that Nuggets team outside of him and Murray. I'm like, who's stopping Kawhi Leonard? Who's stopping Paul George, who's now starting to play really well? And, who else is going to get you buckets on that team on a consistent basis? I'm just not 100% sure. I don't know if the Clippers have an answer for Nikola Jokic, and he's been ringing the bell. They may have an answer for Jamal Murray, though. They have guys that they can put on him and make it tough on him. So I just think it may be too much for the Nuggets to overcome.
That's probably fair. They do have a 2-1 series lead for a reason. All right, Hunter, what's your third guy?
My third guy on my list, it's not going to be a guy who's, puts up 30 points per game, but Marcus Smart. The way he's played on the both ends of the floor, I think he had 16 points in that Game 2 win in the fourth quarter. And defensively, I just watched this guy play, and he's the leader of that Boston Celtics team. Not the best player, but he's the leader, the heart and soul of that team. He gets it done, and he's shown up for the Celtics. I think he's been a big reason why they've been succeeding in the playoffs so far.
Yeah, I mean, he got named first team all defense yesterday. He's obviously, he's like a Jimmy Butler for them, but on a much lower scale. He's just tenacious on the defensive end. He's literally their heart and soul.
I think he's arguably the best on-ball defender in basketball. Like, you watch his technique, the way he times the ball. way he gets his hands in certain angles. I mean, and obviously super tough. He's a gamer. He's a guy who competes 48 minutes a game, 48 minutes a night. And yeah, Marcus
Yeah.
Smart has been a big part of that Celtics team.
Yeah, he's a pest, man. He's so annoying. I can't stand him.
Oh
Anyway.
my God. Yeah, for you being a Sixer fan, that's not ideal. But anyways, though, if you're a Milwaukee Bucks fan, you're probably not going to want to hear this because we're going to be talking about the potential collapse of the Milwaukee Bucks. I think everyone kind of thought, even before the bubble, that the Bucks were going to steamroll through the Eastern Conference. No one was going to be able to stop them. They had the most wins in the NBA. They were on pace for close to 70 wins. Giannis was having a great season, probably going to be a back-to-back MVP. But Jimmy Butler and company just absolutely demoralized this team. They just took away their manhood like that. And Giannis has played pretty well. Not great, but pretty well. But the rest of this team really hasn't. So Chris Middleton in particular, like I said, I think I said it last semester, he was going to decide the fate of this Milwaukee Bucks franchise. And you looked at me like I was crazy, but his numbers have gone down significantly since the playoffs. In the regular season, averaged 20.9 points per game, almost a 50-40-90 guy, which was a really impressive number. But in the playoffs, only 18 points, shooting 40% from the field, 36% from three, and 77% from the foul line. Matt, I want to ask you, do you think Giannis is going to request a trade after this season?
Well, he already publicly came out yesterday and said he's not going to. Do we believe that? I'm not sure, but I'm going to say if he does, he's not going to make it public. I don't think he's going to want out of there. I think he's a guy that does not take what he has for granted. He had to grind every day for where he is now. And Milwaukee has been really good to him. While he may be frustrated, I just don't think he'll go the route of publicly demanding a trade.
Yeah, I guess maybe he doesn't do what an Anthony Davis does or any of guys like that. I think he should request a trade. I mean, at the end of the day, we're the whole narrative around Giannis is he just a regular season player? Is he just a numbers guy? Does he just, does he bring in the playoff? And he's not bad in the playoffs, but he's not great either. We see guys like LeBron elevate in the playoffs. Kevin Durant elevates. Kawhi Leonard elevates. Giannis doesn't. And that's been a fact for him. And I think a big reason maybe is just because he doesn't have the talent around him to really do it. Chris Middleton is getting paid like a superstar, and he's a pretty good player. Eric Bledsoe's getting paid like a really good player. He's a fine player. Like, they have some terrible contracts on this team, and that's not really Giannis' fault. It's more of the organization's fault because they've been trying to keep guys, that they groomed, if you will, and they're kind of trying to prove themselves right. The Bucks window is literally right now. If he stays, they got one more year, I think, to do it. But I just don't think it's enough, especially looking at the LA teams, Houston. Then you look at the Eastern Conference. Like, is Brooklyn going to be better next year? Look at the Celtics. Look at the Heat. Can they make another move? They have two young, talented rosters as well. I just think it may be too much, and I think Giannis is eventually going to have to request a trade or he's going to bounce in 2021.
Well, I think he probably leaves in free agency. I think he's going to try and ride out this contract in Milwaukee, and then not make any commitments after that. Go into free agency with an open mind. I think teams like the Dallas Mavericks, the Miami Heat, and if the Golden State Warriors have any money left, they could all be in the mix for him. And the big thing will be, can those teams put guys around him that can complement his game? And I think guys and teams like Dallas, Miami, and Golden State all have that comment because he needs three-point shooters around him because he's not going to shoot the three. And they all have great three-point shooting teams.
Dallas Mavericks, that one's a little interesting. I want to hear your take on that. How do you think they'd be able to make that work?
Well, here's the thing is they do have Luka Doncic, who's not signed to a max deal yet. He'll probably get a max deal soon. Kristaps Porzingis is on a max. They have guys right now like a Tim Hardaway Jr., like a Seth Curry. Luka can obviously shoot the free ball decently well. It'd be tough with Giannis and Kristaps, but I think they could definitely coexist if you move Kristaps to the center position. I think, it'd be an interesting fit, but I think with all of those, foreign superstars, I think they'd make it work.
I mean, that would definitely be a really interesting team, especially from that perspective. But I also want to hear, too, this is all hypothetical, of course, but do you think Luka would be like, yo, this is my team, get the hell away? Or you think Giannis would be like, nah, I'm back-to-back MVP here, you sit aside?
Well, I think they both seem like decent human beings. I think they would both probably be like, while there might be a struggle for whose team it is, I think they would both probably, know that that they're both coming for the common goal. They're both going for that championship. At the end of the day, you can't turn down a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo if he wants to come to your team.
I'll say this though, in theory, who gets the last shot on that team?
If it's a three, it's got to be Luka. You're not trusting Giannis for the game-winning three.
Yeah, I think Lucas gets the last shot there. He's proven it time in and time out. Yeah, I think that'd be interesting. Another team I want to bring up is the Toronto Raptors. I think that could be a really good fit as well. I feel like Nick Nurse may end up being the best coach in the NBA right now. I mean, this dude has really always gotten the best out of his guys, even when people don't expect it. I think Giannis and Pascal Siakam would be an interesting fit. I love the culture there. They're just a really tough, gritty team. I think Giannis would fit really well in there. What do you think?
I think that'd be interesting. I mean, they do have the cap space, too, to make the deal work. And they are pretty much, you look at their team now, they're missing a guy like Kawhi Leonard last year, and I think he definitely fits that mold. But does anybody really want to go live in Toronto? Like, I feel like Toronto's not a big-time free agent destination. That's something interesting. I hadn't thought about that, so.
I mean, I guess it's not, but it's bigger than Milwaukee. And Giannis is already like, a foreign player anyway. It wasn't like he was born and raised in the U.S. So
Right.
I don't know. Don't make me go in the round. I think Toronto's the third biggest city in North America behind New York and L.A. So It's a pretty big, diverse city. Anyone who goes always likes it. I've never been, but it sounds cool. But they're a basketball town now. They're a legitimate team. I think Giannis, he wants to go to a winner, and Toronto has proven to be a winner. They just won a championship. So,
Yep.
All right. Also, we're going to talk about the Houston Rockets a little bit here. We talked about Mike D'Antoni potentially being fired. I want to know, what does he have to do to save his job?
Well, I think if he, if you look at the past 3 games against the Lakers here, they remain competitive in every single one, but they've fallen apart kind of towards the end. Their three-point shooting has been non-existent. They've gotten hot, and it's brought them back into games like they did in Game 2 and Game 3. But when their three-point shooting goes cold, it gets really bad. And when the Lakers' big three gets going, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook, I mean, there's nothing that the Rockets can do when Russell Westbrook starts throwing the ball to the other team. It's getting really poor for them out there.
Yeah, I'll say this. I mean, Mike D'Antoni's the head coach. He's not the GM. That's Daryl Morey. That's his job. So
Right.
I think honestly, I think D'Antoni's done a pretty good job, getting the best out of the current roster. Again, there's literally no centers on this team. All you got is your cheerleader and Tyson Chandler rooting on the guys on the bench. But obviously, he's not going to play any minutes.
Right.
So I think D'Antoni's done a pretty good job. He turned James Harden into like one of the most dynamic, like, offensive weapons of all time. Russell Westbrook has been really bad in the playoffs, like really, really, even for Russell Westbrook standards, which aren't very high to begin with, really bad. I mean, he's watching like the Lakers Rockets series. It's pretty much like, I think they play better when he's actually off the court and they have 4 shooters around. James Harden drives in the paint and makes a play. So I think that it's not looking great there. D'Antoni, I think he would at least have to beat the Lakers. I think to even them consider keeping his job. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Lakers are starting to kind of figure it out here. And I said on our segment, our NBA segment, be sure to check that out, that I think that the big key difference is the fourth quarter of these games. Houston won the fourth quarter 27-18 in Game 1. Lakers won 27-17 in Game 2. And I don't know the exact numbers in Game 3 yesterday, but I think they won in double digits. So I think that's been the difference. It was a tie game entering the third quarter, 82-82. Lakers won by double digits. So that's the key difference has been the fourth quarter. And at least for 2 of those, the Rockets have stumbled and they have not shown up.
Yeah. Well, and you brought up a good point too, Hunter, and the fact that should the Rockets move on from him. And, on the surface, the right answer may be yes, because, they're not getting the results they want. They obviously want to be contending for an NBA Finals, and they haven't gotten anywhere close to that. But in a much more real sense, this team was built for a system that only D'Antoni runs around. Like, you look around the league, nobody is running a team with no center. So if they move on from him, you'd imagine they'd have to go back to a traditional lineup. And what would happen then? Like, how would they get a center? Like, they don't have enough money to sign somebody in free agency, like a marquee center they may need. And then, if they have to make a trade, then they're going to have to give up some assets that they have that they really like Robert Covington or PJ Tucker. And none of this really makes sense based on the moves that they've made to acquire guys like Robert Covington. They had to give up a lot to do that. So
I think what you'd have to do, Matt, is you'd have to give up Russell Westbrook. That'd be
That's
the only
true.
way. That's the only ask. I mean, you can give up Harden, but that's probably not going to happen. You probably have to give up Westbrook and get a lot back, just like how much you gave. God, imagine being the Rockets here. You give up Chris Paul, who's having like an All-NBA season, and almost beats you, even though you gave up all that to get Westbrook, who has fallen short in the playoffs. I mean, the move made sense at the time. It was like, okay, Westbrook, better player. Chris Paul had a pretty bad season. I didn't know if he was on a decline. He proved me wrong. I'll even admit that. And Westbrook has time and time again not shown up in the playoffs. I mean, we keep hammering on that point, but, numbers speak for itself.
I just don't get how he plays the game of basketball. Like, it makes no sense. He always seems like he's out of control. He's always driving the lane and then just throwing a ball out to somebody and then throwing it right into a Lakers' hand. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't either. But let's go to another series, probably the least talked about series, at least in this round, and that's the Clippers and the Nuggets here. So the Nuggets, they didn't even look like they belonged on the same court in game one. They got smoked out of that one, but then they won game two, kept a competitive game three, but Kawhi Leonard with that crazy block against Jamal Murray at the end of the game that basically sealed it for them. Kawhi Leonard's been a monster in the playoffs. I don't know his exact numbers, but he's been really, really good, and it shouldn't shock anybody. Obviously he's not going to go out and brag about how good he is, but he's always been good in the playoffs, as we saw last year. Looking like Pandemic P starting to turn it around a little bit, starting to play a little better. I think he had 32 last night or 2 nights ago. And then even then, the Clippers had so many rotating pieces in and out. Lou Will went to Magic City, got some wings apparently, came back in the bubble. Montrez, unfortunately, had a loss in his family. He was gone for a while. He came back. Patrick Beverley left. He came back. Marcus Morris was a mid-season acquisition at the trade deadline. Only played like 8 games. Now he's starting to play really well. So the Clippers are just all over the place, but the talent's obviously there. They obviously signed Reggie Jackson as well right before that deadline happened. So I kind of want to ask you, how do you see the Clippers faring in the playoffs here?
Well, honestly, to this point, Hunter, I think they've underperformed. I think they have not played up to their full potential. It seems like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have played well, but they have not played well at the same time. If one guy's going off, the other guy's not. And I think, Paul George's defense was even in question there for a little bit, but he started to turn around. Patrick Beverley continues to be the annoyance that he is. Marcus Morris continues to be the annoyance that he is. And I think their big thing is getting in people's faces and, doing the dirty work and being, that team that everybody wants to hate. And I think it's really worked well for them so far. But then they also have to remember they have to score points to win games. And Kawhi Leonard can't do it all. Playoff P, or Pandemic P, as you called him, needs to be more consistent and be, the guy that he was in Game 3 where he scored 30-plus points and reached their win. I think, that's what they're paying him to do. And I think if Paul George and Kawhi can both dominate at the same time, they're going to be a tough team to beat.
Yeah, I mean, people can argue the Clippers have a more talented roster than the Lakers, but I don't know. I mean, of course I'm a Laker fan. You can call me biased, whatever. But when I watch the Lakers play, it just seems to make a lot more sense. They have better team chemistry. They get it. LeBron, Anthony Davis really control the pace there. For the Clippers, it's kind of like a free-for-all out there. You know what Kawhi is going to do, of course, but, you don't really know who's going to give it to you. It doesn't seem like obviously their whole team they haven't been healthy all at the same time pretty much until now. So there's been a lot of, the chemistry's not there. Like you said, Matt, it doesn't seem like they've really lived up to the potential per se yet. You're kind of waiting for when the Clippers are going to start absolutely dominating. I think they got lucky that Porzingis went down because I think that series could have been even more interesting had he. And then he got ejected in game 1 as well for completely ridiculous. That was just soft by the refs. Oh my God, yeah. But that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother time. But the Clippers, when are they going to turn it on? I feel like when I watch them, it's almost like they're not even trying, and yet they still win games. So I don't know.
I think they're just kind of coasting through these years until they get to the Lakers, and they're going to be like, oh man, we're going to get it together now. It's the Lakers, it's the Western Conference Finals, it's the matchup everybody's been waiting for, the LA battle. I think that's when they're going to turn it on, but maybe by then it'll be too late because it seems like, as we mentioned earlier, the Lakers are starting to hit their stride.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, this is the playoffs. You got to turn it on
Yeah.
now. Like, I don't know what you're waiting for right now. But yeah, anyway, also, last but not least here, we're still going to be doing our all NBA teams like we always do. We're going to be doing our all NBA bubble headline teams. So basically, me and Matt came up with a list of 5 headlines, if you will, that people are going to be talking about both now and maybe even after the bubble happens. So, Matt, what is a headline that you had?
All right, number one, this is not biased at all. The Sixers got to blow it up, but nobody's going to want what they got. Horford needs to leave now, yesterday. He needs to be gone. Tobias Harris's contract is an absolute albatross. And by blow it up, I do not mean trade Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid. They are not going anywhere. They can't go anywhere. If they go anywhere, I'll probably cry. What they need to do is they need to put people around them. They need to put shooters around them. Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, their strength is not shooting the basketball. It's playing good defense and dominating down low, getting in the paint. They need guys they can get out to, like a J.J. Redick, which they had, like a Robert Covington, which they had and traded away. But I think they do need to get more three-point shooters around them and maybe, save them from calling the process a failure.
Matt, I want to ask you this. I know it was a little while ago, but we haven't had a podcast in months. What do you think about the Brett Brown firing?
I think it needed to happen. I obviously did not love him as a coach. He was a decent player as coach, but he didn't really hold anybody accountable. Like there was all those stories that came out about him, not being the hard coach that people wanted. And, at the end of the day, he was there for 7 years. He was coaching the process years. We gave him a chance to run this current roster, and he didn't get it done. He never made it past the second round. And at the end of the day, he's also the reason that Jimmy Butler is still not in a Sixers uniform. So I think it's time for him to move on.
Oh, man. Yeah, I agree. I don't think all of it was Brett Brown's fault. I think there were some bad front office decisions, unfortunate injuries.
You think?
Maybe like team chemistry wasn't great in terms of like how the pieces fit. Again, I've been saying they should have been blowing this up for a while now. I think that team kind of was at its peak when Jimmy Butler was there. He was the perfect player to be there. I don't blame them for trading for him because they didn't really give up that much. I know Covington's a good player, but Jimmy Butler was a star, and you had to make that move to try to win a championship. I don't actually blame that one. And I think Jimmy Butler was going to leave no matter what the Sixers were going to give him. I think that he was going to go to the Miami Heat. I really do. Because it wasn't like he asked to get traded there. He actually asked to get traded to the Heat, and the Sixers were like, well, we'll get him. They did it. They basically tried doing what the Raptors did with Kawhi. It worked out for them. Didn't work out as much for the Sixers. But then signing Al Horford to all that money, and you already have maybe the most dominant interior big in the NBA, doesn't make sense. Tobias Harris is my guy. I'm glad he got his money, but the amount he got, I mean, they signed him to a max contract. I was like, okay, like he's a very good player, not a max contract type of player. Like we were talking about, like with a Chris Middleton, who it's like very good but not great. They just made some bad decisions there. Letting a guy like J.J. Redick have to go. He was a great locker room guy and a three-point shooter, which they currently need on that roster. Just a lot of bad decisions. I don't really know how much longer Elton Brand's going to be there for.
Well, I was hoping they were going to evaluate his status, but he's still sitting there in his, high chair and whatever. Whatever.
All right. Yeah, glad we got your little Sixer rant in there. But now I was just completely egging you on with that. But, all right, a headline I have, and I know we talked about it already, so I won't talk too much, but, what do the Bucks do? What's Giannis looking like? How is his legacy going to be defined by this bubble? I think that's pretty interesting because he was a guy who I know we expected to be making a run at the finals, to get bounced in the second round. Not only that, to get swept gentleman's sweep in the second round. I mean, that was pretty pathetic. And I think for now, that's a huge dent on Giannis's legacy. So I think that was definitely a headline I wanted to look at.
Yeah, I actually had the exact same headline. My exact headline was where do they go from here? I mean, what do they do? Because clearly what they're doing right now has not worked. I've heard some rumblings that maybe they're looking into trading for Chris Paul, maybe, but that's a hefty contract to take on. I'm really wondering where they go from here to try and get, because obviously the past 2 years they've had the best regular season record in the Eastern Conference, but nothing's come of it. So, where do you think they go from here, Hunter?
That's a great point because I've been saying for like over a year that they should trade for Chris Paul. I think he would have been the perfect guy to be there. He gets paid a lot of money, but you can flip Eric Bledsoe's contract, and that's already a good portion. The Bucks are a really deep team, which is good for them because they can give up a couple of guys and they can afford to be like, okay, well, we'll have someone else get more minutes and they'll be okay. I think Chris Paul will be perfect there because he's a closer. He obviously one of the best closers in the NBA. Literally, I think led the league in clutch points in basketball this year. And he's a perfect guard. Like Eric Bledsoe doesn't do anything in the playoffs. Chris Paul does. I know he hasn't won a championship, but I feel like always plays well in the playoffs. I think he's just got
it's not for lack of talent.
It's been a little unfortunate. Maybe they could have went to the finals against the Warriors that year when he went down. Who knows? But true. Chris Paul's a clutch player. He's a winner, and he's a guy who's not afraid of the moment. I think he would complement Giannis really nicely.
I agree. I think it'd be an interesting thing to see.
I think another point that I want to bring up is with the Dallas Mavericks, and that is going to be when's Luka winning an MVP? I mean, this guy, for his first playoff debut against a really good Clippers team, a team that you'd be like, okay, they'll throw Kawhi on him, they'll throw Paul George on him, they'll throw Marcus Morris on him. We're going to throw all these bodies at him, make it tough on him. He dominated, absolutely dominated, not only just with that game winner, but he was just scoring all over the place. He was getting any single pass off he wanted. He rose to the occasion. And I know, again, he played in some big games in the EuroLeague, but this is a second-year guy. He's 21 years old, Matt. He's like our age. So, this guy is one of the youngest players in the NBA and already one of the best players in the NBA. I don't even want to hear people compare him to Trae Young anymore. That is gone and sailed at this point.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question here, Hunter, I think I'm going to put him on MVP watch for next season. I think he's going to make that next step. I think he's already taken that next step. You saw, the series he had against the Clippers. He was literally putting the Mavericks on his back. And he had that great game winner in Game 4 where he stepped back and hit that three off of Reggie Jackson. I think I'm definitely putting him on MVP watch this year. And my bold prediction is he's definitely top 3 in the MVP voting next year.
I don't even think it's super bold. Literally, my bold prediction on Penn State Sports Night when we did it before the season started, I said Luka Doncic would be second team All-NBA. I undershot my bold prediction on Luka Doncic. I mean, I was like, all right, I think Harden, like Curry, and Damian Lillard, like 2 of those guys are first team. He'll slide in second team. And then he's like, I mean, I guess one of those guys got hurt, but, I mean, he's been a monster. He's going to be first team this year, I'd imagine, and deservingly so. And next year – I think we're talking like MVP, like is he a top 5 player in the NBA? Yeah,
certainly. I certainly agree with that.
All right, Matt. So what is the number 3 headline on your list?
Damian Lillard is a lot better than we gave him respect for coming into the bubble, because you saw as soon as he came to the bubble, he said, first of all, I'm not going to play unless my team has a chance at the playoffs. And then as soon as he was given a little bit of chance, a little bit of glimmer of hope, he willed that team to the 8 seed. Dominated the seeding games, they called them, won that playing game, had a huge Game 1 victory over the Lakers, and they kind of fell apart a little bit. He got hurt. The Lakers started actually turning it on and start taking him seriously. But the Blazers, man, I mean, if they had Nurkic the whole year and played the way they did in that bubble, they wouldn't have been an 8 seed. They probably would have been somewhere around the 4 or 5 seed. And I think, Damian Lillard is a legitimate star. And the best thing about him is he's committed to Portland. So I think he's a legitimately top 3-point guard in the NBA. You can make an argument for him being the best one, too.
Yeah, I think you can make the argument he's the best one. I mean, Damian Lillard was absolutely amazing. I mean, he was the bubble MVP, if you will, and rightfully so. He willed the Portland Trail Blazers to the playoffs. They kind of, I think, maybe ran out of gas a little bit against the Lakers. I think the Lakers maybe just posed as a bigger threat. And the Lakers are the better team, let's be honest. So, but I think what he was able to do, I think a healthy Blazers next year will, be a real threat in the West. I mean, we saw Melo be great with them. Nurkic, is now healthy. Zach Collins is a good player. He was healthy for them. Gary Trent Jr., I mean, oh my God. Like, he was a monster.
He was on fire from 3.
Yeah, Anthony Simons has a huge ceiling. They basically have like a mini Dame CJ backcourt behind them. So, with those 2 guys. So, I think the Blazers are going to be really good next year. I wouldn't be shocked at all if they can really make a push.
Me either. I wouldn't either. All right, Hunter, what's your 3rd headline?
My 3rd headline is going to be the team that went 8-0 in the bubble, the Phoenix Suns. Are they a good basketball team? I mean, It's crazy. They won every game and still didn't get in. I mean, I guess that's how far. I think they're 6 games back entering it, and they did what they had to do. Devin Booker was phenomenal for them. I mean, talk about a guy who we were like, can he gets his numbers. We all know that. But does he contribute to winning? He showed he contributes to winning, I think, in that bubble. I know it's only 8 games, but it was when the stakes were the highest, and he showed up every single game. Monty Williams was a terrific hire by the Suns. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets a coach of the year at some point with them. DeAndre Ayton is low-key a really good basketball player. He gets overshadowed by Luka Doncic, and I guess rightfully so. But DeAndre Ayton is a very good offensive threat. And then they got guys of those like really long, rangy wings: Cameron Johnson, Mikal Bridges, Ricky Rubio at the point. Cameron Payne and Javon Carter were just like going off for them off the bench. I mean, this could be a fun, exciting Suns team next year. Maybe they can make a playoff push.
Yeah, they were actually one of my headlines too, Hunter. But I think the big thing is they came to this bubble like, we're 6 games back. We have to win every game to even be considered for that last playoff spot. So I think the big thing with them in this bubble was the urgency. Now, the bigger thing for them next year is they had the coach in place. They've showed they had the players in place. Maybe they make a deal for, another marquee player. I don't know who that would be, but maybe make a deal for somebody and go after somebody in free agency. But the big thing is they need to have urgency through the entire season. They are still a young team, kind of. But, Devin Booker has plenty of experience now. But they need to have that urgency that they had in this bubble throughout the entire year. And we could be talking about them potentially being a playoff team.
Yeah, the West is so loaded. I think the only team I'm like, they have no chance of making the playoffs next year would have to be the Timberwolves. I think they're the only team I'm like, not a chance. All 14, though, I'm like, I can see it.
Yeah.
Like, which I guess shows the inequality, disparity of the NBA, if you will.
That's true.
All right, so you said you had the Suns on your list?
I do.
All right, I'll go to number 4 on mine then, and that's going to be and maybe this is a more broader season one, not solely the bubble, but Jimmy Butler's reputation. I mean, we were talking about him being a cancer to the locker room, forcing his way out of Minnesota, calling out the players. Apparently, he was calling out the front office and the coaching in Philadelphia. He comes to the Miami Heat now, and he's a winner. I mean, this guy's always been a winner in his career. And kind of like a Chris Paul, when you watch him play, he just makes the right plays. He doesn't always have 35 points. He doesn't always pad the stats, but he always makes the right basketball play, and he's a leader. And the team, the Miami Heat, galvanize around him. And that's, I think, been a big reason why they've been succeeding the way they have.
Yeah. Everybody always talks about him not being a great team guy. I say BS. That man is the ultimate team player if you don't piss him off. And he has guys around him that perfectly complement his play style. He's got 3-point shooter around. He's got a dominant center in Bam Adebayo. And he gets to take over the end of the games, which he loves to do. He is always in the right place defensively. He's always making the right pass. He hardly ever turns the ball over. We really got to start talking about him possibly being a top 10 NBA player because of the way that he just absolutely wills this team into victory and always has them in the right place. And, we talked about how he didn't get along with the Timberwolves and the Sixers front office and all that, and front office coaching. In Miami, he has a great coach in Eric Spoelstra, I'm sure he respects, and he has a phenomenal president of basketball operations and GM in Pat Riley, who I'm sure demands the ultimate respect.
Yeah, I mean, Pat Riley probably loves a guy like Jimmy Butler. I know Dwayne Wade had a big presence in getting him to Miami as well.
Right.
He just fits that culture so perfectly.
Absolutely.
That's why Giannis may go there, because I can see him fitting there too. But last but not least on that, what is number 5 on your list?
My number 5 thing on my list, we talked about this a little bit earlier. We touched on a little bit. Russell Westbrook stinks. He had 30 points last night, but he also had the worst plus-minus of anyone in that game at -14. I mean, we really got to start talking about him being probably one of the most overplayed players in the NBA besides Tobias Harris. And, him being an extremely overrated player because what he does on the basketball court, it just seems like he never really has a plan. Sure, he's super athletic and super fast and throws down ferocious dunks and all this. But I've seen him twice in this series get offensive rebounds in the paint and then dribble it through Lakers players all the way back to the three-point line and then go back into the paint. Just shoot the ball, man. You're right there. Just go back up with it. He is like the most frustrating player to watch because sure, he has all the athletic skills, but he can't shoot. And he makes the most dumbfounding decisions ever. He turns the ball over at an astronomical rate. It really annoys me as a basketball
Yeah, that's a pretty good headline. I'm glad people are starting to come to their senses that Russell Westbrook is great. I love watch like he plays so hard. Like it's literally just the highs and lows with him. Like with the good comes the bad, I guess. But
Yeah.
the last one on my list, and maybe this is cheating a little bit, but in my opinion, and I've always thought this, but I think the NBA may be the best organization, at least in the country, if not the world, when it comes to sports
Yeah.
organizations. I mean, what they were able to do to put this whole thing together in the bubble, no cases in the bubble. They've kept it
Mhm.
nice and sealed. The players have been pretty happy about it for the most part. Um, Watching the games aesthetically, it's almost like as if you're actually there with the crowd noise and all
Yeah.
the all the announcements on the PA, the music, the competitiveness. The basketball's been great. All these guys pretty much came into shape and were ready to go. Um, I think the NBA did a phenomenal job. I know people are like, oh, the ratings are down, but I think that also is to do with what's going on in our news and the election and things like
Yeah.
that. And it's in the summer, but I think the NBA has done a great job, and I think that they really showed that they're a first-class organization.
I agree with you, Hunter. And I'm glad you brought this up. I missed this in my headlines. I would have totally brought it up. But what they've done with the Black Lives Matter and the racial injustice situation, the social injustice. The players saying they would not play, they would not come back to even entertain this idea of playing in the bubble if social equality wasn't a big thing for the NBA. And credit to Adam Silver, credit to the NBA PA for following up on that. They have the Black Lives Matter painted on the court. They have the things back on the back of pretty much most every player's jersey. And they had the protests of them not playing for 2 or 3 days, which as annoying as it is, maybe as a basketball fan, as a human, as a person, you see that they're struggling, and obviously neither of us are black, but to be imagining as a black man seeing what was going on in the country, I'm sure that was really tough for them. And for them to say, no, we're not going to play. We're going to, this is something that's bigger than all of us. This is bigger than basketball. This is bigger than entertainment. And for them to say, we're not going to play. We're going to stand up for this. I think it's really modeled what went on in the rest of the country. MLB followed suit. NHL followed suit. NFL had to put out a statement like 5 weeks later because Roger Goodell is an idiot. But, I could totally agree with you that the NBA is the best run organization right now, especially between players and guys up top like the ownership and Adam Silver.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess to sum up everything you said, like the NBA, they're leaders. They're leaders
Mhm.
of like, the first world, if you will. And what they've been able to do to kind of bring people in, the impact the NBA has on a lot of different things. I mean, I guess it's bigger than basketball, if you will. I think
Sure.
Adam Silver is a terrific commissioner. I feel like he's gotten thrown in the fire for so much stuff. Like, I mean, there was a boycott, and then and they were able to handle that. They were able, to come up with a plan. The whole Don Sterling thing, that was like the first thing he did when he was like a commissioner. And then, no tolerance, banned him from basketball, like, and
Yep.
forced him to sell the team. Like, he does a great job. The players really respect him. And there's just not a lot of like bad guys in the NBA either. There's a couple like guys, who play hard, they get in your face, but there's not like any like bad dudes. Like they're all like genuinely good people that like make a difference. So and that's crazy because I've been reading this book about Magic Johnson, and Larry Bird, and how in the '80s players were doing cocaine. They were had huge drug problem. There were fights. People were getting in full on fights, bench brawls, clearing and everything. And the NBA's image is squeaky clean compared to what it was back then.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree
So
more.
yeah, but that's pretty much what we got on the rundown tonight or today. So thank you everybody for tuning in. It's been a hot minute since we were able to get a podcast going. We'll see what Penn State kind of brings in store for us if we're able to get back into the studio next week. Maybe we'll be able to. If not, the Zoom meetings obviously do justice as well. Also too, you're able to see our faces and see our reactions and stuff. So that's good, or you can see half of mine. But anyways, though, appreciate it a ton, and be sure to check us out next week.
Thank you for watching our latest edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also follow us on Twitter at PSSNTV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.